So last time we drafted the pattern. Let me show you how we got from there to here. First thing I have to do is lay everything out. It's a little cold in my garage, so I'm not working in there. I'm inside. And then I bring out the pattern. It's rolled, so I got to put something down to hold it in place. The paper I used, the large paper, it's all on rolls, so it's a little difficult to use sometimes. It makes, So a couple important keys here. If you notice, those scissors are the same scissors I use for cutting fabric. There is no precious as far as my tools go. I like my tools, but scissors can be sharpened. And honestly, nice sharp scissors, I don't even need to cut. I just run it along the paper and it cuts it for me. If you can sharpen a scissor, there's no reason to make it overtly precious. So all I'm doing right now is cutting out the pattern. I cut it out, I stack it, I cut out the next piece. There's absolutely nothing special about this. Just cut on the lines. That's the extent of it. Like I said, sharp scissors just cut right through paper, almost as if they were made for it. I try not to be, like I said, I try not to be precious about my tools. It's a tool. I take care of them, but I'm not sitting here going, oh, these are my good fabric shears. No such thing. Fisker makes a tool designed 100% for sharpening their scissors. Why would I worry? There's something just super satisfying about cutting out a pattern. If I'm using a tissue pattern, I always trace it on paper first because I like having a backup. But, you know, and then I cut it out. Apparently my battery died on me too, so jump cut to pattern being cut out. I thought all of it was gone, so I was happy. This is probably the biggest key to paper patterning for me, is I iron all of them. If you have your iron set too hot, it'll burn the paper, but it's super noticeable. If it's not ironing enough, turn it up a little bit. There's no right setting, it's just, you know, keep going till it works. And I'm just ironing every single piece flat. Again, there's no secrets to any of this stuff. I really wish I could say, and if you do this, you will be a good tailor or a good seamstress. There isn't. You just do the things. Pattern making is kind of an art form, but you know, that just takes practice. Anybody can do it, it just takes practice. I try to keep all of my curled pages on one side, my flat on the other, just so I know which way I'm turning. And that's it, just iron all the pieces. It really is just tracing these exact same pieces and cutting them out. I originally start with it this way. I'm like, yeah, I'll just line everything up. And then I'm like, no, don't be an idiot. And I turn everything because it's way easier if I have a full length than just trying to fight with pulling it and tucking it and pulling it. Just use the maximum volume. I tend to start with the back plate because it needs to be on a fold. Anything on a fold gets traced first because I know 100% where that needs to go. And this is just Tetrising things in place until it all fits. You know, you line it up, you move it off to the side. I use my sewing supplies as a weight and just keep tracing until you're done. I am keeping in mind grain on this one. I wasn't paying as close attention. This is the fabric that I didn't like, so I didn't pay as much attention as I should have because there's a right side and a wrong side. The grain goes one way and then the other. On the other stuff, that I like better. I'm probably going to open the whole thing up and just trace everything twice if needed, if I need two of them. You get more use out of your fabric that way. There's less wasted space, but that way I'm guaranteed my grain's going in the right direction. I don't want to chance anything weird because I wasn't paying attention. Because I don't pay attention often. And there's lots of futzing. These two pieces are just huge, and they don't quite fit where I want them to. I ended up going on this one because I remembered I had the shoulder lining back that I needed to cut out too. The shoulder reinforcement that needs to be on the edge, which is that piece right there. It's not difficult. None of what I do is difficult. That's like, people make things as hard as they need to be. As hard as they feel they need to be. The nice thing about this, since this is just a mock-up, I can jump into the salvage. The salvage is the weird little bit on the edges. It's where the machine grips it to make it. And it's usually not workable. Luckily for this, I don't care if it falls within my seam allowance. I'm not terribly worried about it. I just want to make sure everything fits together and it looks right. And then it's just next step, same as the first. Just cut everything out. Sewing tutorials are super, super boring. Because there's no real pizzazz, right? There's no fire, there's no explosions, you're just some dude just talking. Or some lady, whatever. Some person who thinks they're an expert. And you're like, you're not an expert. No, I'm not. I've just been doing it a real long time. That's kind of the key. Nobody's really an expert. They just know a couple of tricks. And you know enough tricks, people just assume, oh, you must know what you're doing. I do. I've been doing it a real long time. And then we start sewing. And I started with the epaulets, and I do not like how they came out. I'm going to have to think of something different. And I'm not quite sure what yet. I just used a yellow ribbon. Again, it's for the mock-up, but I didn't like how it looked at all. I'm just zigzag stitching it onto the top before I put the two pieces together. That way it curves into everything. It's a finished seam. It's just hiding I prefer it that way. It looks good at a distance. I mean, at 2 feet, it's perfect. I like being good up close too. So it's just stitching the front and back together now with the wrong sides in, and then turning it right side out. They're gonna get interfaced when I do the actual ones, but these I wasn't terribly worried about. They're a little floppy. I'd rather have them stiffer. There's a lot of this is way looser than I want it to be, and way tighter at the exact same time. But we haven't gotten to that point yet. And then just turn it right side out. I top stitched one of them just to see how it looked, and I didn't like it, so I'm probably just going to press them all. I may use some Stitch Witch to seal everything flat. And then I moved on to the cuffs. Since the cuffs are a separate piece, I want to put the long edges together. And by long edges, I mean these edges right here. And then I do the top. Right? This edge, then this edge. But I gang everything together because it's faster for me. I'd rather not waste the thread because it's all the blue I've got. And I've got to make 4 of these. Well, 5, counting the mock-up. But, you know, just one right after the other. That's all there is. There's no real secret. I keep saying that. It's true. There isn't. I hope Future Hawk puts music in the background. If not, this is going to be a super boring video. clock clicking. Once the edges are sewn together, everything gets split, everything gets lined up, and then I do the top edge. And this was just kind of messing with it, making sure the seams stay open. I could have pressed it first, but I didn't. It's not that big of a deal. I press it in a couple of minutes. Spoiler alert. And then I just stitch all around the perimeter. I tend to start where the seams are. That way when I finish where the seams are, and it's just a little bit of extra right around the seams. It's just going in a circle. Except this one's got a weird divot that comes in and out. I was worried about top stitching for the whole thing, whether I wanted to do it or not, and then it occurred to me that it's got the silver trim all the way around it, and that's going to act as top stitching. So then I stopped worrying about it. These inner curves are kind of difficult to deal with. Go one stitch, see if it lines up. Go the next stitch, see if it lines up. They're weird cuffs. I thought about having them all attached to the jacket, but I don't think it'll look right, because in one end it'd have to be the lining, and it just didn't seem right. And now I'm doing the other epaulette. Same as the first one. This one I took a little more time with. You always take more time on the second one, which is why we do mock-ups. I think I'm going to do a little more research and find out what actual military use for this. My shelves are messy. I should probably fix that. I need to redo that entire area. It doesn't work quite as well as it's open. So then I just press everything. Turn it right side out, press it, make sure everything is flat. These flat things are way easier to sew than non-flat things. It's always a constant battle with fabrics, because it doesn't want to do what I want it to do. It never does. And the weirder the costume, the more likely I am to run into problems. When you go with anime always does just this odd. The whole time I was doing this this mock-up, I had to worry about lefts and rights because of course it's non-symmetric. And I don't know. I don't know. They look good. Once they're interfaced, it'll be a lot better. So now I'm sewing the top shoulders, the shoulders to the back, and then the shoulders to the inside. It's just a straight stitch all the way across. CDC says don't touch your nose. It's been a couple of months since I've done a good sewing project, so I keep forgetting things and remembering things and forgetting things and remembering things. All in all, it wasn't difficult. It was fine. It was fine. My machine started acting weird for a little bit, but that's just because my bobbin was starting to run out of thread, so it was pulling weird. Once I re-threaded the bobbin, everything went perfect. I know normally I bring you around so you can see what I'm doing, but we might do that for the final shell, but for this mock-up, I didn't think there was a need for it. This should just be a quick overview. This is the weird flap that goes over the front, over the left side. I have to sew that on both inside and out, just because I may make it one solid piece, but probably not. I like the fact that I have two pieces and I can use less fabric in certain areas. And the seam is a good folding point, so I know exactly where that is. And then we go press everything. Again, there's a lot of pressing. Except, I forgot the collar. The collar curves in opposite directions. That's what makes it lay nice and ovular? Makes it lay nicer on the neck. I was worried about the collar because it's completely different than how I did the Harlock collar. But this is how I normally do collars, so you know, stick with what you know, and it worked fine. I'd say better than fine. I was happy with how it turned out. Of all of the mock-up, the collar is probably my favorite. So at this point I'm just going to press the shoulder seams flat. This is the shoulder seams for the outside. And then I'm going to attach the epaulets. But I fold them over so I don't accidentally stitch the tip down. Nothing as unpleasant as stitching your tip down. And then I fold the weird flap flat. Press the collar. That'll also be interfaced, so it's going to lay much nicer on the finished product. And these just came out weird. I don't know how I feel about them yet. And I know they're just a little bit, but I need to do a little more thought on that one. And then I pin the sleeve on, and it's just a matter of pinning it all the way around. It fits. Normally there are issues. This time there wasn't. That was kind of nice. A lot of people, you're supposed to do the shoulder seams and then the side seams, and then you have this weird hole and you stitch the sleeve together, and then you try and get the round thing to fit into a round thing, and that always bothered me. Traditional sewing is just, it doesn't make any sense. I feel this is way better. It's easier to do. You don't have to fight with things. And then I'm just going to stitch everything I just pinned. Oh, I forgot to pin the two collars together. So we're doing the collar first. Then it gets turned right side out and stitched. And it's just a top to the bottom. When I do the actual, see, this is where I was having problems and I was fighting with it and fighting with it. Winding a bobbin, it takes forever. You gotta find ways to amuse yourself, to sit and look at it. Then it just worked like a hot damn. No problems, everything was fantastic. The problem I was having at this point was the thread would loop under the needle, or loop under the bobbin itself. So, easy fix. And every single problem I had sewing at that point just went away. No need to fight with it if you don't have to. And the tool, nobody's going to be impressed that I'm on difficult mode for no reason. And it worked fantastic from then on. Missed a call. Now I just sew everything I pinned, which is just the sleeves at this point. I might do a little more extra reinforcement around the epaulettes. I keep calling them epaulettes. They're probably not, but that's just what I'm gonna keep calling them. Clapboards? I don't remember. They're epaulettes. This is what the 501st calls them, so, you know. Stick with what you know. So I folded the seam back where the epaulette is and stitched so it would come out from the shoulder and up. It's a little thing, it doesn't make a difference. I should have done that at the end, but you know, hey, it is what it is. Now I'm going to pin the collar. I find the middle of both, put a pin in it, line up the pins, and I just pin everything down. It's really that easy. I'm also pinning the inside and outside together at this point. I didn't do the full lining, I just did the fabric parts of the lining. Because in the end, that's kind of all I need. And I stitch everything I just pinned. You make a thing, you cut a thing, you pin the thing, you sew the thing, you unpin the thing, you're done. That's all sewing is. People like to make it complicated. It's not. But it's starting to look like a jacket, and that makes me very happy. At this point, I was, I don't know. I was excited, but I was kind of holding back. I hadn't tried any of this on yet. So now I'm going to do the side seam. It's way easier than trying to fit a sleeve into a sleeve. I tend to start at the armpit, work my way down to the cuff, and then down the other side. It's just one quick, simple stitch. There's not a lot to it. And it's way easier than trying to fit sleeves. I hear a lot of people say things like, I can't use a sewing machine. Or I could never make my sewing machine do that. And it's just a machine, right? If you can use a Sawzall, you can use a sewing machine. If you can use a table saw, you can use a sewing machine. It is just a machine, like any other machine. You just have to learn how to make it work. It's not difficult. It's just a machine that stitches two things together. Welding is harder than sewing, right? And a lot of guys are like, oh, I could never sew. Anybody can sew. Anybody can be taught to sew. Sewing is a skill. It's not overtly difficult. And I removed the plate here so I could slip my sleeve all the way around so I can sew the two pieces together. Most sewing machines can do this. It's a super useful feature that is way underutilized. I wish my throat was just a little smaller so it would fit a little easier. But other than that, it's fine. It worked perfect. Snug, but almost as if it was made for it. I folded it, sewed it together, and then pulled it out so the seam was on the inside, and then I did a top stitch. It's the same process for the hat. And here it is, right? I have full range of motion. Super happy with it. I can touch my elbows. It fit well. I think it's a medium. I wear a large. So it's a little snug. I'm probably gonna end up putting an inch everywhere, but as far as just random drafted patterns, it turned out perfect. I am super, super happy with it. So that's it, right? The mock-up is done. I know exactly what I need to change. I'm probably gonna add an inch on the sleeve. Then an inch in the back, which we'll also have to add an inch to the collar. And then probably half an inch on either side, and then half an inch on the back. And I'm super happy with how it turned out. It looks great. With the right fabric and the right trim, it's going to look spot. It's going to be exactly what I wanted. And I'm very happy that the pattern turned out. If you want to see how it turns out, you may consider liking and subscribing. I do this stuff all the time. We do sewing, we do random crafts, props, all things costume. I'm not going to say geek because I hate that word, but all things pop culture. I got props that I make, costumes I make, and I do more than just sewing. So if this is your kind of thing, again, like and subscribe. Next one's probably going to be something different because I need a break. But no matter what, hope to see you then.